Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Generations of the Game. Me, your boy JP. Of course, got my co-host here, Will Lyons. What's up, brother Will? Talk to the people, man.
Was good, man. Coming off of a heartbreaking loss, but I had to wear my gear so they know I'm a real fan.
Yeah. It happens with young teams, man. I guess we're going to get into that eventually, tonight. We also have a special guest straight out of Cali. Our man's Kev. What's up, Kev? How you doing, bruh?
Man, I'm good. I'm glad to be here. I've been tapped in with y'all. Love what y'all doing. Glad to get the opportunity to hop on myself, and I'm ready to get it rolling, man. I appreciate y'all for having me.
Hey, man. Hey, we're happy to have you on with us, brother. So tonight, the people out there, it's going to be a basketball-heavy conversation tonight, definitely. But we got to get things rolling here first because we didn't record last week, so we got to get to the Super Bowl real quick, just real quick. So the Kansas City Chiefs defeated the San Francisco 49ers in overtime. Final score 25-22. Once again, Patrick Mahomes works his magic. Once again, since Kev, you're the guest on here, brother, we start with the guest. What did you think about the Super Bowl last week, man, and Mahomes' performance?
Man, I thought it was a pretty good game for the most part. I think it started off slow, like them first 3.5 quarters, but the Niners had a chance to close it away, right? They got into the red zone. Brock Purdy missed through because Chris Jones went unblocked. Had opportunity to probably seal the deal right there. But if you give Andy Reid, Pat Mahomes, Travis Kelce any light of the day, they're going to take full advantage. And I think that's exactly what they did. The game went to overtime. Everybody was talking about the blunder of the Niners taking the ball to begin at overtime because they didn't really know the rules of overtime. And I think that probably cost them too. But again, I just think it adds on to Pat Mahomes' legacy, of course. He's going to go down as one of the greatest, if not already. He already is, but he still has so much more to grow. And then, Travis Kelce balled, of course. And I think the biggest thing for them this year was that they did all this without having a true number one wide receiver, right? Like Tyree Hill's not there no more. They don't have a Mike Evans. They don't have a Justin Jefferson. I think that tells everything that you need to know about just what they are. And I got to give a huge shout to the defense too, because I feel like their defense does not get enough credit at all for what they've done, right? They held Lamar Jackson to 10 points in Baltimore. You know what I'm saying? That's tough, right? So, between, as I mentioned, Chris Jones, you got L'Jarius Sneed back there in the secondary. You got a couple other guys too. McDuffie's really good. Like Nick Bolton, like they got dogs on that end of the ball too. But overall, I thought towards the back end of the game started to get really good. And, just you got to tip your cap and salute the Chiefs for getting yet another one.
I agree, man. I agree. You very on point what you said, man. Definitely. Will, what was your views on the game?
It started off, okay, but it definitely turned up, man. And we've been talking about it for weeks now. Got to give credit, of course, to Andy, Mahomes, but major shout out to that defense, man. They just make timely plays. Chris Jones, he's just like unblockable, man. Every time you look, he's somewhere making a game-altering play, whether he actually is getting a tackle or not. He's just got his hand, in the QB's face or something, in a crucial moment. And then, that secondary, they made some plays too. And then we, of course, got to shout out South Jersey's own man, Isaiah Pacheco, you know what I'm saying? Of course, man, the stats don't tell the full story of his impact. There were some timely plays that he made as well. And I got to say, man, like going back in the season, I can't remember which week it was, but I know there was some games where there were some huge drops that led to the Chiefs, taking some losses and people were down on them. But you see, they did what, great teams do. They locked in. Mahomes, he's not, super loud in the camera or anything like that. I feel like he's a quiet leader, but he leads by example. And everybody locked in, and they did what they needed to do.
Yeah, man, I agree, man. Patrick Mahomes, man, he's just incredible, man. Just and his athletic ability is so slept on, man. That's another thing about it too. You don't think he's moving that fast, but he runs like probably a 4.5, 4.6 40. He definitely runs that. I mean, he had some big runs in the game. We know he can throw the ball and stuff. You know, they used to. I remember Stephen A. Smith would always say, "Aaron Rodgers, that's a bad man." Nah, man, I'm sorry, he can't touch Mahomes. Mahomes is probably the best quarterback, talent-wise, that we've ever seen. I mean, he has it all. The arm, he can run. I mean, he can do so many things. And not only that, he has the resume to back it up. I mean, you got to remember, he's 28 years old. He got 2 league MVPs, 3 Super Bowl MVPs, and 3 rings. Nobody's done this before the age of 28. And he's definitely going to have more. He's definitely going to have more coming on the way. As long as Andy Reid's there, and as long as you have 15, that dynasty is going to. I can't see nobody really stopping them next year neither, especially to get a big time receiver. I don't see it. And another thing we talk about too is Chris Jones, like you all said. I thought until maybe the last 2 years, Aaron Donald was the best defensive tackle in football, bar none. The last 2 years, it's been Chris Jones, man. Chris Jones to me, because he's so disruptive. And he does so many things. They better pay that man. That's all I know. They're going to have to pay him because he is the key. He is the straw that stirs the drink on that defense. They better pay that man. You know, and with the young defense they have, Kansas City's going to be around for a minute, man. They're going to be around for a minute. So, you know, do I see a three-peat? I'm not going to bet against them. I will not bet against Andy Reid at number 15. Won't do it, man. Can't do it. But yeah, as we transition to the world of basketball, and before we get into the high school stuff and I guess college basketball, let's talk about real quick NBA All-Star Weekend. Real quick, let's talk about NBA All-Star Weekend. Let me say this first of all, man. Let me say this before we even begin. I love the NBA. You know, I'm not one of them old head dudes like, oh, Jordan's era, the Michael Jordan era was this or this. The 80s was this. Nah, today's era, these guys can play. These guys can play. But I will say this. I am never going to watch an NBA All-Star game again after what I saw on Sunday. Kev, you're the guest, man. Speak on this on the NBA All-Star Weekend, from the skills challenge to the dunk contest to the game, man. Just speak on it, man.
Man, I'm right there with you. I'm damn near in the same air, right? Because like the skills challenge to me is whatever. I think the 3-point contest was fine. You know, shout out to Dame, shout out to Steph and Sabrina for doing their thing. But the dunk contest is what's losing me, because I feel like, especially as a kid, like the aura of the dunk contest has something that you couldn't really even put into words, right? You had the stars, you had Vince, you had Michael, you had Nate Robinson at the time. Like you had guys that would really show out and put on a real performance. But nowadays, I think dudes are trying to get too cute with it and they overthink it. And then it's like, what are we even doing here? Like Jaylen Brown is 6'6", jumping over Kai Cenat, who's 5'9". He's sitting in a chair that makes him like 5'3". You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, I don't even know what we really doing here. So the dunk contest is, I think that's the one thing that can be truly fixed, but it's gonna take, I think, the stars hopping back into it, like an Anthony Edwards and like, you know, a couple other guys. So we'll see. But the All-Star game itself, man, I had to turn it off. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. I had to turn it off. I got out of there so fast. I was like, y'all got to be kidding me, especially because the West roster was so much more better and talented than the East roster. When you give up 200 points, and I'm like, I seen RP Kobe. I seen a clip of him saying like years ago when he was on the Knuckleheads podcast talking about it's supposed to be the best pickup game of all time because it's the best 24 players in the world, right? And it's like guys just don't really care about it like that anymore. And I don't know if they got to switch it up. I don't know if they got to go to USA versus World. Whatever the case may be, they got to do something because, again, it's the best talent in the world. And I understand Brown was dealing with an ankle injury. You know, Kawhi honestly didn't even look like he really wanted to be there. But still, you got to give the fans something to believe in and something to watch. And that was just an all-around bad product, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Will?
I mean, first off, the dunk contest, I do agree, Kev. I don't know, man. They got to put up like a huge check or something to re-energize it. Because to me, you know, you do want some stars, but you also just want, you know, guys that you don't have to be a star, but you got to be like a well-known dunker. Like I would say, Jay Rich was like a fringe player as far as like all star, but he was a good player that was known to put on a show. You know, so him being in it, Desmond Mason, you know, it meant something, right? Vince, of course, you know, but so you need Anthony Edwards, maybe Jalen Green. If Ja does it, the world is going to go crazy, you know. And I'm actually not opposed to some of the G League guys, but I would say, I mean, no offense to Mac McClung, but there are some other guys, man. JD Davison, you know, he got to have.
Oh yeah, oh
You
yeah,
know, them
yeah.
Philippians vertical, you know what I'm saying? It's some guys, and let's be real, you know, this is not Kentucky bias, but they cheated my boy Jacob Toppin. You know what I'm saying? He did some legit dunks. He would have put on a way better show, and he wasn't jumping over nobody that is tall enough to be in middle school. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, they need to do something to correct that. I thought that the shootout between Steph and Sabrina was dope. I do think that that was really cool. I feel like maybe they should expand it, you know, to maybe put a spotlight on some of the other WNBA players because it is some real snipers, of course, in that league. You know, and Sabrina is a good player, a good shooter, but it's more than just her, you know. But that was cool, man. I think it was needed for some of the ignorant proclaimed hoop heads. You know, she shot from the NBA line and still, you know, made more threes than some of the, you know, the men that will be in the 3-point contest would. You know, so that was dope. And then the game, I'm not even gonna waste my breath on the game, man. They scrap that.
Yeah, man. I agree with y'all, man. You know, the dunk contest. I really think the last great dunk contest that we saw was Aaron Gordon versus Zach LaVine. That dunk contest right there was one of the best of all time, bar none. But I haven't been hyped for a dunk contest since then. That dunk contest right there, man, was incredible. Just the dunks they did. I mean, you saw some dunks that you didn't see until then from both of them. You know, that was a great one. I can remember the Dominique versus Jordan. I remember that Dominique got robbed in Chicago. That was, to me, that was home cooking, especially did that power windmill from jumping off the top, man. I can remember that. I can remember him getting robbed there. Like you said, Kobe had some great ones. Vince. I mean, you know, Vince is probably the greatest dunker we've seen, you know, but I agree. As far as the game goes, I agree, man. I watched like 5 minutes of it. I'm like, man, I can't do this, man. I can't do this. All it was that's all it was. Cats scored out of court, just dunking, shooting layups, shooting threes, and what more can you say, man? But anyway, let's go on to as we move on to college basketball. Getting down to crunch time, y'all. Separating the men from the boys at this point. Will, man, we're gonna start with you, man. Suffered a heartbreak last night, bro.
Yeah, man, it was a rough one. I thought, you know, Dillingham put us over the top, man, with that, you know, that ISO, you know, off the jab, you know, into the jumper. You know, I was going crazy, man. And then 5 seconds later, man, I damn near wanted to fall out the bed. But, I'm not hitting the, you know, the alarm or anything like that. You know, there's a multitude of things going on. You know, DJ still not, you know, back at form, you know, from when he was kind of hitting his stride earlier in the year. You know, like you said, JP, when we were just chopping it up, he's learning a new position. You know, his job, a lot of people don't see anything but, you know, points, but his job is not to score 25 points. You know, it's really to, you know, set the table, you know, facilitate the offense, you know, compete defensively. And when, you know, you get some buckets, you know, in there. But we've only played one game. Everybody healthy. Trey Mitchell's missing games. DJ missed some games. Rob missed one. Aaron and Ugonna missed the start of the year. Big Z wasn't eligible. So really, there's not much of a rhythm. You know what I mean? Like as far as everybody being there. And it's hard. Like Cal's got a tough job on his hands. He has a very talented roster, and he's trying to, play lineups that work, but also, create continuity at the same time. And that's not easy. Like you look at some of these teams, like we talk about UConn all the time. UConn's been rolling with those guys the whole year. Castle, has some injuries and stuff, but overall, they've been pretty healthy. So those are the things that matter at March. But I think they got some few weeks left, man, going into conference tourney and everything. I think they'll be okay. I think the bracket, makes sense. I think they can make a run at it, man. I just as long as we don't see St. Peter's, man, we should be all right.
Yeah. Kev, what do you think about state of college basketball right now in Kentucky?
Man, it's a lot going on in the complete state of it. I mean, this is the best time of the year. End of February, about to get into March, so I can't complain, me myself, because I love March Madness. Everything about it is great. When it comes to the transfer portal, NIL, I think it's been beneficial, but I do think that the NCAA was not prepared to handle it, even though they had like 4 to 5 years to get it together. But that's a whole other topic of conversation. But in regards to Kentucky, like Will said, I'm not too worried about them. I think the bright spots about them is that Justin Edwards, I think, is finally starting to get it together. And the dude Thiero is turning into a big-time piece for them too, right? He had some big-time plays in last night's game. So I think just having those two dudes start to gain some confidence, it eases up the pressure off of guys like Rob Dillingham and Reed Shepherd and DJ Wagner, and it makes their lives a whole bunch easier. And I think if you can just get some consistent production out of Ugonna, I think that's the biggest thing, just because he's not necessarily the greatest offensive threat, but he's a big body on that defensive end, and he can protect the rim, and he's still trying to figure out angles and different things like that. But for the most part, he's solid. He just has to learn to stay a little bit more disciplined. But I think Kentucky's going to be fine. The defense I think it's on the up and up, but I don't think it's necessarily great right now. But I think they're still, again, working on, like Will said, there's been so many injuries. And I think getting Trey Mitchell back is just as big a key as having to do with Thiero, right? Because he has that calming effect. He's a guy who's been in a lot of different college basketball games in a lot of different situations. And so we'll see. I'm not worried about Kentucky at all.
I agree with you too, because Kentucky's the type of team they could win it all, and it wouldn't surprise me if they win it all with the talent they had. Final Four, definitely. We like this team reminds me somewhat of the 2014 team. Remember that team with Julius Randle and all them? And then when the tournament came, they got hot.
Yep.
They got hot, man. They went all the way to the finals. This team reminds me of that in a lot of ways. They're going to get better once the tourney starts. Once they get to the SEC tournament and moving forward, I expect this team to really hit their stride, man, and do their thing. Definitely do their thing. And, man, speaking of which, I got to talk about my team real quick, y'all. I want to know. I'm a Georgetown fan. I've been a huge Georgetown fan since I've been a kid, man. I need to ask you a question. Will Georgetown ever be relevant again? Cam, let's start with you, man. You, like I said, you're the guest, man. Let's start with you. Is Georgetown going to be relevant again?
I'm going to say yes. It might not be Hoya paranoia, Hoya Saxon. I don't think it's going to get to that level again because, as y'all know, that was like a cultural thing. That was a major factor back then. But my biggest thing with them is people just got to give Ed Cooley time, right? Like Patrick Ewing, I've been saying Patrick Ewing, he only took the job because John Thompson wanted him to take the job, right? It's not like he wanted to be in college basketball. Patrick Ewing wants to coach in the NBA, and I don't know if he's going to get that shot. I hope he does, but whatever. I tell Georgetown fans, if any of y'all listen to this, forget about that phase. Like, act like it didn't happen. But for Ed Cooley, give it a couple years, again, because unlike a couple of these different situations, like I look at Tommy Lloyd at Arizona, right? He inherited a great squad in his first year there. He had like 3 NBA players. Ed Cooley didn't have that. Like, Ed Cooley is literally, he has to build Georgetown from scratch. Like, he's putting it all together literally from the bottom. So Give him time. Let him start to slowly but surely get his players in there, because when you take a job in the spring, at that time, you're already behind the 8 ball, right? You just got to scrap a roster together to get your first year down. And I think they'll be fine. And he has some good pieces to build around, like Jaden Epps, and a couple other guys. Drew Fielder, I think, is going to be really good for them. But give Ed Cooley time. And I'm not saying they're going to be, again, as big as they once were, but I do think he can make them a consistent threat in the Big East in due time. It's just going to take a little bit of time.
Right. Good points. Very, very good points. Will?
I mean, I think if you let Cooley get his players, man, he can make something happen. I mean, I'm not saying this in like a negative way, but he had Providence humming. You know what I'm saying? Like, so when you look at the resources that a Georgetown can have, has at their disposal in the area, if you can recruit the DMV, you can definitely win some basketball games, man. And like, I've seen enough from him to think, given time, he'll make it happen.
I agree, man. I agree, because some people say, oh, there's no difference between him and Patrick Ewing. But like Kev said, like you say, Will, he's built this team from scratch. And I think he has, 2 or 3 top 100 players coming in next year. One of them is, one of them is center Thomas Sorber from Philadelphia, Father Judge, 6'9", 6'10". He could really play, And I guess people looking at, Derek Queen signed with Maryland, and he was down there from DC, Baltimore area. And I think the key for Ed Cooley as well, and this is key for any coach that's down there in the Maryland, DC area, whether you're University of Maryland or Georgetown, day one, you have to establish relationships with the AAU coaches. That's what. That's number one. Number one rule. That's something Patrick Ewing didn't do. You've got to know who they are and establish relationships with them. That's the key to success to your program. Number 2, you got to recruit DC, man. You got to get a lot. That's what made Georgetown great, was a lot of those players were from the DC, Baltimore area. Now, back then, you had Dunbar. Washington Public League was good. So, you had a lot of tough kids from these public schools. It's different now. The private schools are in control down in the DC, Baltimore area. So, you're going to need to work those private schools. Although they do have a school in DC that's tough, a public school. I think it's called Jackson something. It used to be Woodrow Wilson, but it's called Jack. They're nationally ranked. But you're going to establish them relationships with the Bullitt School, with the public schools in DC, with the Tabatas, with the Pawn Sixes, the Okados. You're going to establish that to get their players. That's what's going to take. I agree. Do I expect Georgetown to be the Final Four, the Elite Eight, or Sweet 16 the way they used to with that long run when John Thompson was there? Nah. And like Kev said, it was a cultural thing. I mean, Georgetown was basically Black America's team, basically, back then. Everybody wanted to go to Georgetown, but times have changed and, and stuff like that. Let's talk about UConn real quick, because they took a beating the other night, but I'm going to say this. That's a good thing as far as I'm concerned. It's a good thing. Kev, speak on it.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I feel like when teams get smacked like that, the entire world just wants to be like, oh, they suck. Oh, they don't have it. Oh, they not built for this. But I completely disagree. I think, honestly, especially during this time, you kind of need to get humbled, right? I feel like when you lose, your team starts to buy a little bit more back into what your coach is preaching, right? When you're winning all the time, you're allowed to get away with bad habits. You're allowed to just kind of go through the motions, but a loss brings you back to earth. And I think that's kind of what happened with UConn. And Creighton's a really good team, by the way, for people that don't know. Like, it's nothing wrong with losing to Creighton. It's not like they lost to a bottom-tier Big East team. They lost to arguably the second or third best team in the conference. So I love what UConn is doing, though. I have just like Kentucky, there's no worries about them. I think when you have that mix of guards between Tristan Newton, Stephon Castle, Cam Spencer, Hassan Diarra, they can go in a multiple different lineups. You got Dominic Clingan protecting the paint. I think the biggest X factor for them is Alex Caravan playing that 4 spot, being able to knock down shots, space the floor, and get to the rim and defend at a high level too. So I look at them like they're, in my opinion, the most complete team in the country. You got to give a whole bunch of credit to what Dan Hurley and his staff have built, because they've really brought UConn back to the apex of the sport.
Yes, they have. Yes, they have. Well,
No, it's better to lose now than in March, and it's true. This gives you a chance to hit the reset button. Be like, look, there's some shit that was going on that I've been telling y'all you need to clean up. You know what I mean? And we were winning, so you didn't listen to me. But now look, and it's true. Creighton is a good team. You know what I mean? So it's not like they lost to a bad team, but conference play is where the wars happen because you play most of these teams multiple times. They know your habits. You know what I mean? Like better than anybody. So I mean, it happens. That stuff. But I think this was the perfect time to get smacked upside the head. Metaphorically. And they gonna reset and healthy. They're gonna come into the tournament looking for blood. I'll be real, like I can't say for sure, but they got a good chance, to repeat.
oh, I agree. And that's the reason why I think that was a good loss for them the other day because now they're going to come into the tournament hungry now. Mm-hmm. Whereas if they didn't lose, say first they won the Big East, they went through everybody. They'd be on 20, 21 game winning streak coming into the NCAA tournament. The first round they'll get by, second round, but then after that, that's when things start getting tight. Sweet 16 and on. I agree. I think this UConn team is dangerous, and I think this team is more talented than the team they had last year. I think so. By that I mean as far as like the team chemistry and everybody knows their role, what they're doing and stuff. Remember last year they got to a hot start. Then they had a little streak there where they lost. But then they got it together. They got it rolling and everything in the NCAA tournament. This team's a little different, though. They're a little older, mature. We said Clingan, he was freshman last year. He's probably one of the most dominant big men. Well, he is one of the most, him or Edey, are the most dominant big men in college basketball. You got Castle, Newton, and all them guys back there, man. It's a tough team. They have everything, guards, forwards, and a very good center.
Man, losing Adama Sanogo, and Andre Jackson and arguably being better is insane, man.
It's insane. And you know what? People don't talk about him enough. Danny Hurley is a hell of a coach, man. Yep. He is a great coach. He's easily one of the top 2 or 3 in college basketball right now. But people don't talk about him, though.
Hell of a leader.
Mm-hmm. That Hurley tree, man. That Hurley tree, man. The Hurleys can coach, man. Jersey. You know that. Yeah. Let's talk about Duke real quick, man, y'all, man. Duke started to become a dangerous team, man. Duke is starting to become a dangerous team, especially when you got and what you call is really starting. And you know what? I saw this kid last year when he played against Camden last year. This kid McLean, man, one of the best shooters I've seen, man. That kid can shoot, and you seeing it now. What do you think about Duke, man, now, especially right now, Kev?
And I got to start with Jared McCain, like you said, Cali boy. He's from Sacramento, but we still claim because he played at Centennial, which is like an hour out from where I'm at right now. They've had great players come out of that program, but I think Jared McCain is just getting it clicking, right? He had that 30-plus point game at Florida State where he just dominated. I think he had 25 in the first half, which is crazy, right? Mm-hmm. And he's always been known to be a knockdown shooter, but he's starting to make plays off the dribble because of his shooting, abilities, right? And that opened up a lot of different things for his game. I think his confidence is starting to get sky high, but I've always liked the Duke team for the most part just because I always say the key to winning in March is guard play. And they, just like UConn, have a lot of different guards that can go, right? I think Jeremy Roach has been the unsung hero for them, being in his 4th season. I want to say, I'm pretty sure it's 4th. It might be, this is 4th, I'm pretty sure. But he's been there. He has all the experience in the world. He was their 2nd best player in the run when they got to the Final Four in Coach K's last year, right? You have other guys too. And Tyrese Proctor's been very solid. And, of course, you got Kyle Filipowski. He's a 7-foot mismatch, right? He can space you out. He can post you up. He can knock down mid-range shots. Like, offensively, it's nothing that he really can't do. And they're just starting to put together. You got a guy like Mark Mitchell, who's that 6'8", 4-man. Not the greatest shooter, but I think his confidence growing has probably been the biggest and most essential factor for him just because he can go down on the other end of the floor and lock up anybody in the country, right? So I think they're peaking at the right time, and it looks like they're destined for a good March run.
Yeah, definitely agree. Definitely agree. Will.
Man, I hate to admit it, but I gotta agree. Like, dude, it's coming together at the right time. We can't, man. We talk with Pablo all the time about Duke, man. Give him a lot of, but Flip is hooping. McCain, he's not deferring the way he was earlier in the year, and that's been huge for them. Because he is such a gifted scorer, and it's true. Like, I feel like rightfully so, he had a reputation kind of as a shooter, but he does have more layers, to his offensive game than that. And I think his evolution kind of frees the rest of the players, and allows for some kind of like second and third level like playmaking, from them. And Flip, man, he's a hard part, man. Like, he can put the ball on the floor, he can post up, he can shoot at some. That's gonna be just rough. And Lord knows, like, going into March, there's the knowns, but then of course you got Jeremy Roach, leader, big time playmaker when they need it. But then I feel like you're gonna have, just like McCain had, you're gonna have like another highly touted freshman, Caleb Foster, have a game where it's the Caleb Foster. Like, they have so many pieces, and then the Swiss Army knife, Mitchell. I've been feeling like he's kind of the key for Duke in 2 years. Just because when you look at traditionally, when you look at teams, like, they usually have a player like that. They rebound, they make the right pass. They definitely play defense. And he some games, he can give you some offensive production, from cuts, some non-transition stuff like that. But it's the other thing. It's kind of like we were talking about UConn. A little different game, but it reminds me of like what Andre Jackson did for them last year. So they've got, all the ingredients, man. Can Shire really, do what he needs to do with that clipboard when it comes down to it?
Yeah, man. They're loaded, man. I mean, Duke is loaded, man. They got so many people that can score. They got so many weapons that, like you said, defensively, they're playing well. And Schreier's doing a good job, doing a damn good job, because, I mean, look, he's replacing Coach K. And in my lifetime, Coach K's probably the best college basketball coach of all time. And you replacing a legend. It's like Nick Saban being replaced at Alabama. That's what it's like, with him being replaced. And Schreier's doing a great job. He's getting his identity, and he's going to bring in some monster classes. I mean, you look at next year, he's bringing in Cooper Flagg and them guys in that class. So, we're going to see it. Carolina's rolling along. Carolina seems like they're back to playing well, and next year they got a great recruiting class coming in. So, like, Duke and Carolina are back to being the cream of the cream.
Hey, JP.
Yes, sir.
Real quick, I did want to get Kev's thoughts as the resident Michigan State fan on how they're looking.
Man, it's been an interesting season, right? Because as y'all know, we started off preseason ranked number 4. I've never been a big preseason rankings fan, just because you got to see what teams look like first. But we've had some tough losses, and we've been very inconsistent for the most part. I thank God for Tyson Walker, because if he didn't come back, our season would be in the dumpster right now, if I'm being honest with you guys. But it honestly, just as much as Michigan State fans want to blame our players, it goes back to Izzo. And honestly, if I'm just being honest with you guys, he has to hit the transfer portal. You look across the country, all the top teams have at least one impact transfer. And even Tyson Walker originally was in the transfer portal. He came from Northeastern, right? Out there in, the Northeast, super Northeast. And you got to get into that portal nowadays. That's just the nature of the beast, right? You can't be ignoring that. It's too much time. Look at AJ Storr at Wisconsin. You look at Dalton Connect at Tennessee. You got Kashad Johnson at Arizona. Everywhere you look, it's the transfer. Cam Spencer has been a difference maker for UConn. So our biggest issue is honestly we're just not getting any production out of our front court, and so it forces our top 4 guys between AJ Hogarth, Tyson Walker, Jaden Akins, and Malik Hall to be consistently great every time we step on the floor. And when you look at it like that, we know that's just not Michigan State basketball. We're always known for having good guards, good wings, and bigs that run the floor and can rebound and that are tough and play defense. And right now we're just lacking that. And again, it goes back to Izzo and his staff just not being willing to hit that transfer portal. And we're probably going to squeak into the tournament, I'm pretty sure. But can we go on a run? Maybe, because Izzo's done it, with just as less talented teams. So I wouldn't be surprised. But at the same time, right now it's just the inconsistencies is crazy. So I'm hoping that we start to slowly but surely get together. Historically we have. They call him Mr. March for a reason, but I'm not too down on this team. I think if we can just get a little bit more consistent, we got a couple tough games. We play Ohio State next, but we got Purdue and Northwestern on the schedule before the regular season ends. If we can get one of those, I think that will boost the morale a lot going into the NCAA tournament, especially the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And I guess what's the big man you recruit? Booker? That's the big man that you had? Yeah. I guess he hasn't lived up to the expectations yet. Because some had him as the number 1 player in the country.
And I want to say real quick to that, right? Because as Will knows, as you know, right, when these kids get these 5-star rankings, people just automatically equate that to, he's got to be a one and done. He's got to be a first-round pick and all that. And that's just not the case, man. It's just not. Xavier Booker didn't even play varsity until I think his senior season, if people remember that, right? He's from Indiana, and he was good, but everybody knew that he was going to be a project. And a lot of our fans have been screaming for him to play, and it's like he's playing in the Big Ten, which is historically like the best league for big men, the toughest league for big men, right? I think, too, that big men have the toughest transition going from high school to college because of the physicality. Guards, the game is lean towards guards, right? It's lean for the guards to eat. With bigs, it's a major adjustment. And so physically, he's just not ready, and that's okay. Like, you look at some of the top players in the NBA right now, Jalen Williams was in school for 2 years. Tyrese Halliburton was in school for 2 years. So I think we got to kind of get away from that. If you're not a one and done, then you're a failure. Like, that's not the case. Like, if you do 2 years in college, 3 years in college, and you're at the right school and you develop, I think that's more important than anything because the NBA is not going anywhere. The millions of dollars is still going to be there. Right.
I agree. Unless, like you said, unless you have like a big man that comes in like Victor Wembanyama or somebody like that that's going to be just change the landscape of college basketball. If he'd have played last year. I tell you what, if he'd have came in the NBA, in the college basketball last year, whatever team he was on, they were going to win the national championship. I think there's no doubt. I think let me ask you all this question. Because I get into it with a couple people. If Victor Wembanyama was an American high school player, how many points a game do you think he would average? I would say probably like 35 to 40.
In college or high school?
In high school, even on a great team, even on a great, you couldn't hold that type of talent back from scoring.
No,
there's nothing you can do, with that in high school.
Yeah. Oh, I think he definitely would have been a 30-point scorer in college too. I think he would have gave you like 30 or 15 in college. I think he'd have been that because you look at what he did last year over there in France in that league, playing against grown men. College would have been too easy for him.
I mean, look at his numbers in the NBA on a minute restriction.
Crazy.
I've seen him dominate Chet Holmgren in the summer, like 2 years ago, right? And USA versus Spain, versus France, and he killed. Like Chet is, as we know, Chet is a hell of a defender, but he made Chet look like he was light work.
And Chet Holmgren is going to be a great player in this league too. But as they say, there's levels to this. Wembanyama, I think it's like Kev, like with big men, I always have Wilt and Kareem up at the top, and then you have everybody else that's great beneath them. But I really do think that when it's all said and done, Wembanyama can be right up there with them as far as being dominant big men in this league. I really do. He's something that we talk about a lot on this show, man. He's something that I've never seen before. At that size, with the skill level and the shoot, it's like, man, it's like he's created out of a video game.
Yeah.
And he's a special talent. Speaking of special talent, we're going to move on now Kev, this is your area. This is your area. We're moving to your area of the country right now. California. Man, we got to talk about this class of 2026 that you all have out there in California. And as I said at the end of the show 2 weeks ago, this might be the most talent you've seen from a state anywhere in this country. Speak on it, man, on the players and the talent coming out of, especially as you said, Southern California, because we know 2 of them are out in Northern California, but Southern California right now is on fire.
Yeah, man, I feel like it's always been, right? I mean, as you mentioned, this 2026 class is different, right? You look at the top, Brandon McCoy, he's originally from Oakland, but he goes and plays at St. John Bosco, which is a top-tier school out here. And a whole bunch of guys out there in Bellflower that played there, and he is a dog, right? He's a 6'4" PG, but he can get to the spots anytime he wants to. Big-time finisher around the rim. He can dunk on you. He's a hell of a facilitator. And I think defensively, he's only scratching the surface. Again, he's from Oakland, too, so big shout out to the town. But, I mean, you got other guys too. Elijah Arenas, right, out there at Chatsworth, the son of course, Hibachi Gilbert Arenas. He's a dog, right? He could have easily went to any of the top schools out here, but he decided to go to a random public school that Gilbert threw him at, and he's dominating, right? He's learned how to kill. And I think that's been a big thing. And shout out to Inglewood's finest, Jason Crow Jr. His pop, Jason Crow's a legend in the city. I think he is, man, as a lefty down there at Linwood, you can't stop him, right? On the UIBL this year with Team High now. He played 17 for a little bit, then he played 16, and he was just killing. There's really nothing that you can do about his game because he gets to a spot, especially as a lefty. Y'all know, like, you're a lefty, you get that natural advantage because dudes aren't used to guarding left-handed players, and he's taking full advantage of that, and he's just another guy that's playing for. And then the last one that I'll touch on is Taj Reza, the son of Trevor Reza. Goes to St. Bernard, shout to St. Bernard. He is honestly a spitting image of the pop. Right? He does a little bit of everything. I'd say he's probably a little bit more bouncy than Trevor was back in the Westchester days, but outside of that, they move just alike. Not a three-point shooter, a big-time defender. He understands how to play his role, never gets outside of himself. There's no wasted movements, and just impacts winning basketball. So, me being a fan of hoops, I love it. Again, I can go anywhere within a 20-mile radius, and all these guys are right here. And I've always said that SoCal to me produces the best players in the country. I mean, you look at Y, you look at PG, you look at just a whole bunch of guys. I can go more too.
James Harden, Westbrook,
Klay Thompson, you know what I'm saying?
Klay Thompson.
The list goes on and on. So, you know, big salute to SoCal because to me, we the top end.
Yeah, man. I mean, right now, I would say the top 5 areas of the country, definitely LA, Southern California area. DC's always going to be there. Philly is up in there. Philly got a lot of talent come out. Chicago and New York. New York is New York. New York hasn't turned. I mean, you know, the city itself hasn't been on fire for a while as far as talent. But North Jersey and, you know, I guess I consider North Jersey, New York City, they hold it down, man. But those are definitely the top. Of course, you can't forget about Texas, Dallas, and Houston,
Texas,
Miami. Yeah, exactly. Atlanta. You're right. Those are the hotbeds. This is where most of the players are coming from. All these areas. But this California class, 2026, man, is crazy. And like you said about Gilbert Arenas' son, man, I've seen videos of him, and you know what? I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. I really don't want to say it. He reminds me a little bit of Kobe Bryant when he was in high school. I said it. They're similarly built. They both, Lower Merion was unknown before Kobe went there. Now Lower Merion's a powerhouse. And it's just a lot of similarities I see between them. The bounce of the, I mean, this kid's athletic ability is crazy. It's crazy, man. I see the block shots. He's long. Was he about 6? They say he's 6'5". I think he's taller than that now. I think he's about, maybe 6'7", you say?
Yep.
Yeah, it's like, And the thing about it is, like, you don't know who's better between him and McCroy, because this kid McCoy, he reminds me of a mixture of John Morant and Derrick Rose. You know, he reminds me of that. And then we can't forget about the kids up there at Prolific Prep, Stokes,
Yep.
top 5 player of the class. Like you said, Ariza, top 5 to 7 player in the class. I mean, and as you said, Jason Crow, man, he you know, he's underrated in a lot of ways, but he's definitely one of the top 5 to 7 players in the country. I've seen videos of that kid too. That kid can shoot, man. That kid can shoot anywhere. And you know, they play. I think they average more points than anybody in the country, don't they? They only average like near 100 points a game in school. It's
something crazy like that, yeah.
Yeah. And he's averaging about almost 40. He's put up almost 40 a game. Now, I know UCLA and USC's been down this year. I know they gotta be chopping at the bits like, yo, if we can get 1 or 2 of these guys in here, we're back. We're back.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying. I mean, when you're at one of those schools, kind of like what you hit on earlier with Georgetown, you got to recruit the local kids first. You got to prioritize the local kids because that's how you build connections. And again, being biased, like I feel like SoCal's a hotspot. You don't have to. You can build your roster with majority of SoCal dudes and figure out the rest. Right? There's no reason for you not to be. I know UCLA Mick Cronin came out and said that he had an NIL problem. That's why he brought in so many foreign dudes, which I kind of see. But at USC especially, I mean, yeah, you brought in Bronny. Yeah, you got a couple other guys, but I mean, for the most part, that roster is not like inner city dudes, right? A lot of those dudes don't really have the pride that comes with being at USC, right? Like on the women's side, you got Juju from Watts, and she's killing it, right? So, I mean, yeah, you got to establish them inner city ties because they're there, and you can even go out to the Inland Empire, right? You got San Bernardino, you got a whole bunch of different places out there too that you can go get recruits too. So, I mean, they both got to figure it out because there's no reason why either one of those programs is successful this year.
Right. Well, what do you feel as though with the talent level out of the Golden State area, man? I mean, it's unreal.
I mean, it's crazy. It's like crazy. Like, you guys, I mean, it's talent everywhere you look. And the fact that they actually, some of them.
Will you break it up a little bit, brother?
I said, can you hear me?
Yeah.
The fact that they're able to keep some of their top talent home speaks volumes to the level of competition and talent there. A lot of other players, like we talked about New Jersey and some of the other places, a lot of times we lose players in practice and everything like that. Crow, was a killer, man. Every time I look out there, Arenas definitely impacted me. And I gotta give Gilbert his credit too because his son is very talented. But his daughter don't really get talked about like that. She is playing and just believe it. On the women's side, she scoring guard for sure. So obviously, he knows, like, hot takes aside from the show, he knows what the hell he's doing. And then, just running down the list, man. I mean, I know we talk about Tyron's not from there, but, I mean, like his build, especially the floor as fast as he does, and he was trying to tear that.
We break it up again a little bit, bro.
Tyron Stokes tries to tear the rim off every single game.
Yeah.
He has like a mainstream tone that you need, and I feel like that instills just enough fear in the opposing defense where they once he gets that one dump off, they don't want to try to contest it. Kind of just has his way the rest of the game, but he can do so much more than that. So Cali, man, they're shining, man.
Man. It's, I mean, Kev, I envy you, bro, because you can see you can pull up and see a good game any like you said anytime you want to. You can see all these guys, all of them play. Well, right now, who is the best team in the state, but in Southern California region? Because they're probably going to win the state title out of I guess whoever comes out of Southern California. Who's the best team right now?
Man, that's a tough one. I definitely put St. John Bosco in there. I think Harvard Westlake, they're kind of like a little bit outside the city out there, but they got Trent Perry, who's really good. They play in the Mission League, which is like one of the best leagues in the country, in my opinion. But Harvard Westlake, I put up there. They got Trent Perry. He's going to USC next year. Man, I'd probably say those are the top two. Of course, you probably have to throw Mater Dei in there just because. But yeah, Bosco, I say Bosco. Man, I think Harvard Westlake, Kresge's in there. They play in the same exact league. Joe Sterling is a dog. He's going to be nice as hell in a few years when he enters into college. So, yeah, I definitely think it's probably between either St. John Bosco or Harvard Westlake. Some people would throw Sierra Canyon in there. They're good, but I don't think they're in the same status right now as Bosco or Harvard Westlake.
Yeah.
Kev, I wanted to get your thoughts on. I don't want to butcher the name, man. It's on the side, but school with the E. You know what I'm saying?
Say it one more time.
What's the school with Kennedy Smith? That's on USC.
Oh yeah, Etiwanda. Yeah, they're a powerhouse on both sides. They've been a powerhouse. Shout out to Coach Kleck. He was a legend. He produced players like Aaron Collison, Jordan McLaughlin, who plays for the Timberwolves right now. They've had a lot of guys. Jeff Pendergraft went there as well. They produced a whole bunch of talent. And on that women's side, yeah, Kennedy Smith, like, it's funny because she is signed with USC, so she's going to play with Juju next year and Coach Gottlieb. I don't think she's necessarily as nice as Juju, of course, but I think she should be getting some of the same love that Juju was getting from the national media, right? Because Kennedy Smith she went out there and played at Hoop Hall out there in the Northeast and killed. She went to down to Texas, played against Duncanville, killed. She's been all across the country. She won an EYBL championship with the Cal Sparks. She just knows how to impact women. She is a dog through and through, right? She can get to the rim. She can shoot, a whole bunch of different things. And I think that pairing of her and Juju for the next 3 years is going to be scary as hell for not just the Big Ten, but the entire game of women's college basketball, because she is definitely one of them ones, and she is a big-time difference maker in my opinion. And, again, she's from SoCal, so only adds on top of it.
Facts. I see it back in her.
Yeah. I can remember some of the great players that came out of Cali for the past. Like we talked about Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard was state player of the year, I think, twice?
Yep.
And what was crazy about that was you would have thought he'd been a top 10 recruit. He was actually a top 50 recruit, but we know, and I guess, whoever was recruiting him didn't know what the hell they were talking about, because Kawhi, when he's healthy, when he can play, he's the best two-way player in the league, offense and defense. Definitely a Hall of Famer. And, of course, we mentioned James Harden. They had him when he came out. And don't forget the other player that played with James Harden at Artesia, too, Ronaldo Sidney. Remember, he was all-world when he was real young.
Yep.
Ronaldo Sidney, and I can remember, I go back a little further to I remember John Williams from Crenshaw. He was a monster. I can remember him. Of course, can't forget about the Ball brothers at Cheeto. I'm going to tell you what, man. Chino Hills, that team they had in 2016 was one of the best high school teams I ever seen. And Will, I'm going to tell you something. You know who they reminded me of? They reminded me of them Camden teams back in the 80s when they used to play like the same style, running, pressing, shooting, and everything. That's what they reminded me of, man. But that Chino Hills team, they definitely one of the best teams that I've ever seen, man. I mean, just the way they just came in and just took the life out of you. I mean, you start the game, you're down 20-0. Game is over.
I mean, that team had 3 lottery picks when you look back at it.
3 lottery picks, 4 NBA players. And they had like about 3 other D1 players too. They were all now, Kev. They were all from Chino Hills too, right? They were from the same area, right?
Yep, they were all from there. You had my guy Eli Scott. He went to play at Loyola Marymount.
Right.
Cam, he went to Northern Arizona. They had players, so big salute to them because they were all homegrown. It wasn't none of that like, oh, we just gonna recruit. Like that was a true public school team, and they dominated everywhere they went.
They were tough. And if I'm not mistaken, their coach that coached that team, he's at Fairfax, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I met a guy a few years ago back at the Will. It was at Will Strickland's event, the Court 21, and he was assistant coach. He was telling me at Fairfax out there with him, man. At Fairfax, he was telling me about him. But man, that Chino Hills team, man, was arguably. And I'm gonna tell you something. I'm gonna be honest with you. As good as this Montverde team is, they could play with him. They could play with him because of the quickness and the way they shot the 3-pointer. And let's be real with this. Lonzo Ball was. I mean, he's had some injuries in the league and stuff. But as far as a point guard passing and stuff, Lonzo Ball was one of the best high school point guards I ever seen. He just took games over, man.
Yeah, I don't think he get enough credit for that, right? Because again, yeah, he's been hurt in the league, but what he did in high school, he literally ran through everybody, right? SoCal, we got great competition one, but when he went down to the city of Palms and ran through Montverde with RJ Barrett and those guys, that's when I was like, yeah, I knew he was the one because he had some battles out here. They were playing against Mater Dei with Stanley Johnson when he was like a freshman, and he was going toe-to-toe. If anybody knows anything about Stanley Johnson was, I think he might have been like one of the 2 players that went 4 for 4, where every single year he was in high school, he won the state championship. And I don't think that'll ever be copied again because that's tough to do. But yeah, man, Lonzo was dominant. Everything that they did. And I honestly feel like that play style that LeVar implemented was kind of ahead of its time because you look at the game now, it's all about just getting up and down. It's all about just running as fast as they can. That's what Chino Hill was doing for anybody, in my opinion.
And ain't nothing smoke either. When you think about it, like they played tough in-state competition. I remember them playing Malik Monk and this team. Like they played anybody, anywhere.
Yeah, I remember I watched them. The first time I saw them was at that Hoop Ball Classic, and they were playing against Bam Adebayo's team.
Yep.
And they beat the hell out of it. I was like, I kept on hearing about this Chino Hills. After I saw that game, I'm like, I had to follow them everywhere. Like, I had to watch the games on the internet. I had to follow them everywhere. I was like, yo, this team is probably one of the best high school teams I ever seen after I saw that. Just the way they shot the ball, the relentless pressing whole game. I mean, man, and they, like you said, they destroyed everybody in their path. Just destroyed them. So yeah, man, they had a great team. They had a great team. But I'm really looking forward to following this talent out of Southern California. Kev, who do you think is the number 1 player out of that region?
I think I got to go Brandon McCoy. I mean, shout out to Giovanni Ruffin, too. He's down there at Long Beach Poly. He's in the class. So he's a senior this year, I believe. I want to say he's 24. So his college choice is definitely going to be interesting. But, I mean, Giovanni Ruffin is definitely one of them. Giovanni Ruffin, excuse me. Brandon McCoy, yeah, it's one of them, honestly, because, again, Giovanni's at Long Beach Poly, and, I mean, y'all know the history, but they're not really as good as they have been per se, and obviously that's a high bar, but they're not the standards of what Long Beach Poly is, and he's carrying them to big time wins. And so I definitely put him in the conversation. But I think it's Brandon McCoy just because everything that he's done, like he's been dominant. They went and played in Hawaii. They've played across the country a few different times, and he's just put on a show. So I definitely go Brandon McCoy in my opinion.
Yeah, I think a lot of people go with Brandon McCoy. I think the one that has the most potential out of this class, though, is probably Arenas, though. I think Arenas has and it won't surprise me by 2026 he's the number 1 player because it's like Will said earlier, and the thing about it is, if I can remember correctly, Gilbert Arenas actually talked about it on his podcast about his son one time. He said the reason why he let his son play at the school he's at now is because he wants him to get used to being the man. And you play through adversity and stuff and how to carry a team. And that's the reason why he's playing there now, at the school that he's at now. And which I think that's why he didn't send him to like the powerhouses and stuff, because he wanted him to learn. And I think that will benefit him when he goes to college, where a game could be on the line or whatever, and it's like, just give me the damn ball, y'all get out the way. Because I think he's an elite scorer. He might actually be the best scorer in this class.
And what people don't understand about that too is that, yeah, he's the man on his high school team, but when it comes to AAU time, in spring and summer, he's playing for Compton Magic. He's playing for their top team. Like last year, he was there. He was 15, 16, playing 17U, and he was killing it, right? Like he was dominating. Not too many people do that because Compton Magic is the premier AAU team out here for Adidas, right? And he was put on the show, and he was killing at that level. And they have a squad every year. Historically, they've always had guys from Evan Mobley to my guy Matt Bradley, who was at San Diego State last year. Like they've always had dogs at Compton Magic, so he's just the next one in line.
Man, boy, y'all got everything out there, man. Football, y'all dominating that, and now you dominating basketball and stuff. And of course, we know track and field and everything like that there. Cali always got some of the best athletes, man, high school athletes in the world, man, historically. But when you're in the biggest state in the country, this is what you get though, too.
Facts.
So yeah. Anybody Will, you got anything?
No, man, I think we did it all. I would just say, Kim, go ahead and plug your stuff, where people can find you, all of that.
Yeah, man. All my socials is at Kevo Mufasa7 on Instagram, Twitter's at KEVOOMUFASA7. And you follow me, I'll follow back. And real quick, I just want to say too, I'd be remiss not to say shout out to both B Diddy, Baron Davis, who was killing that Crossroads back in the day too, and my guy Paul Pierce too, of course, from Inglewood too. So I had to say that real quick, but I appreciate y'all for having me on, man. It's been a pleasure.
Hey, man, don't be a stranger, man. Don't be a stranger. You definitely got to come back.
For sure.
You definitely got to come back. Hey, Will, before we close this out, man, we got to talk about New Jersey's playoffs real quick. We got to talk about Camden last night, man. in the opening round of the Group 2 tournament. They beat Lindenwold, what was it, 116-39?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, in the first round. Group 2 is going to be interesting, though. I think them and Township's going to be, that's good. I think Camden will probably win that game, but that's going to be a tough game, though.
I think so. I think the Lindenwold game showed people that aren't really as into in this team that it's a lot more on that team than you should. They have some uncommitted players that definitely will be playing college ball somewhere, and they can go. I think it was they scored a lot of points, but the total team effort. I saw multiple people on the team, double-doubles, boards, and things of that nature. I think they got a shot. They're ranked number 2. So, and there's been a lot of chatter about the state of Camden basketball, so I think they're pretty good. Coach Wayans, does what I think he can do. I definitely think they can make another run.
I'm gonna be honest. I expect them to win the state championship this year. I really do. Especially with last year when they didn't get a chance to defend the title they won in 2022. I mean, it shows you the talent of this team too. Like you lose a DJ Wagner, you lose a Sion Bentley, you lose Aaron Bradshaw, Boog Robinson, and Sierra Haskins. You basically lost your starting 5, and you just come back and just reload with this team playing against a national schedule, and they're 25-2 right now.
Mm-hmm.
The Camden Express just keeps on rolling, and like man, it might be. Some people say, well, they had little gaps between it, but I don't get into that. They might be the best public school team in high school history. Because if they win the state title, this would be number 13. This would be 13 in the last 65 years. They might not win it every year, but damn it, they're consistent every year.
And one thing we gotta account for too, they don't get their respect across all sports. Their track and field program, their football program, and their basketball program is got more banners than they can bring up. Like super legit.
You know what we're going to do soon as far as the program and stuff goes. We got to speak on some stuff that people don't know about the program and stuff. And you can go up to that 74. The team had the 74. They had 2 NFL players on it, and they won the basketball state championship too. The same core. We're going to talk about that one. That's the future. You know that we getting into that.
Yes,
But yeah, man, this was a great show, y'all. Kev, do not be a stranger, man. Like I said, man, once the playoffs can start in Southern California, you will be our correspondent out there, man. Let us know,
Gotcha.
what's going on, who's doing what, man. You know that. Yeah. So we hope everybody out there looks at the show, listens to us or whatever. Like we said, hit that subscribe button for us. Please hit that subscribe button for us. And of course, shout outs to our loyal fans who watch us and everything. And of course, we're going to keep on bringing the content to you all, man. So on behalf of me, JP, with Kev, Will, we say peace.
Peace.